Hi guys, it's ASBYT and welcome back to a brand new video, and today we're talking about the OPPO Reno. All of the talk recently has been about the OPPO Reno 10x zoom, but you'll struggle to find information on the standard OPPO Reno, and I think that's a little bit of a shame because the standard OPPO Reno comes in at a lower price, but it's still on paper packs a hell of a punch. So I'm going to do a quick unboxing and then give you my overall first impressions review. So without further ado, let's get straight to it. If you're new to the channel and love everything tech, news, unboxings, reviews, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and ding that notification bell so that every time I post a video you are notified and can stay up to date with all of the latest tech. Once you take off the lid, inside we have our manual, and then straight away you'll see the phone with the OPPO text underneath. We'll lift out that phone and we'll come back to that because also inside we have a soft case which is made of silicone. We have a pair of headphones which I must say are very Apple-esque. We have our charger and our charging cable and our SIM ejector tool, and that's pretty much it. So just to put this phone into perspective, currently the standard OPPO Reno retails for roughly just under 400 UK pounds, a good £100 here or there cheaper than the 10x zoom version, which also makes this device about £100 cheaper than the standard OnePlus 7 as well. Of course, OPPO and OnePlus with Vivo are all under that BBK umbrella, so they've often shared many features in the past, and OPPO globally are a massive company, one of the biggest in China and India as an example. So starting with the aesthetics, on the rear we have a very clean and crisp design. We have the two cameras which are completely flush with the actual back, no camera bumps in sight. We do have a little bump underneath it and I'm not too sure, but it looks like that is just for design purposes only. Of course, on the 10x zoom version, that is where that zoom lens would be. And then we have the OPPO logo and the text designed by OPPO. I really like the colour, very understated but very classy, nice matte finish. Then when we flick to the front, this is of course one of the big selling points. We have a tiny bezel running all the way around, a slightly bigger chin than the rest, but again very minimal. It's like a OnePlus 7 without the water drop notch. So where is that front facing camera, you ask? Well, in keeping with the 2019 trend, we have a pop-up camera, but it's not like anything you've seen before. It pops up at a weird angle to the side and it's pretty funky. I'm not gonna lie, there won't be too many phones that will be producing something like this. More on cameras a little later. And all in terms of design, it feels very premium. Like if you told me this cost £700-800, I wouldn't argue with you at first impression. Looking at the specs information on the website from where this was actually sent to me from, which I will leave listed and linked below, you've either got storage options of 128 or 256 gigabytes. I've got the 128 model here with 6 gigabytes of RAM, and I'm pretty sure the 256 storage option comes with 8 gigabytes of RAM. We have a 6.4-inch AMOLED display, so this is a smaller device. We've got Android 9 Pie with Color OS over the top, which is of course their skin, and I've here got the Chinese ROM, but there is a global ROM available as well. I do have the Google Play Store, for example, installed on here, but it doesn't come native with the Chinese ROM. You have to do that yourself, or you can of course buy a global ROM. I'm not a massive fan of this particular skin over the top of Android. There are others that I prefer, but it's not horrific. Now onto the SoC, which is another thing that varies from the 10x zoom model, and that's the fact that we have the Snapdragon 710 compared to the 855. But when you take into account how much cheaper this one is on paper, without of course fully testing it, it seems like a very good deal because the Snapdragon 710 is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated SoCs on the market. It's an incredibly good mid-range chipset which will handle pretty much everything you decide to throw at it. With the Adreno 616 as well, it's going to be pretty good for gaming as well. And in terms of the comparison between the 710 and the 855, yes, it is different. Yes, the 855 is better, but without being side by side, the majority of the average consumer probably wouldn't be able to tell which one this had. Incredibly snappy, very smooth. Again, I'd have to test it more over time and run lots of apps, lots of games on it, etc. But again, on first impressions, I'm liking what I'm seeing. Me likey. Fingerprint in the display, and while it's not the quickest and most accurate on the market, it is still pretty quick. It does also come with face unlock if that's something you would prefer to use as well. Another area that this differs from the 10x zoom is of course the camera setup on the rear. On this model, the primary sensor is a 48 megapixel lens with f1.7 aperture, and the second lens is a 5 megapixel with f2.4 aperture, and it is a depth sensing lens, so good for all your portrait shots, etc. The video maxes out at 2160p at 30 frames a second, and in that motorized pop-up, our front-facing camera is a 16 megapixel lens with f2.0 aperture. Max video is 1080p at 30 frames a second. So again, not industry leading across the board with those camera specs, but they're certainly not to be laughed at. Now let's do a couple of little tests, starting with a selfie with that motorized pop-up camera. Right, so straight away, I have noticed that we have some severe beauty mode dropped onto this, which I'm going to try and alter and try and make it less, see if we can. Right, so it was set to smoothen. We've just popped it back to natural. And that is much better. It's not the sharpest image I've seen. It doesn't compare to the Pixel line, for example, but it's pretty similar to those other devices, again, in and around this area of the market. The OnePlus 7, for example, some of those Xiaomi phones, the Redmi Note 7. It is pretty impressive once you turn off that beauty mode, for sure. On the standard Reno, we have 3765 with VOC charging at 20 watts, similar to Dash Charge on the OnePlus 7. Pretty quick, not industry leading, not as good as Super VOC Charge, which OPPO also create, which you can roughly get 75% battery in 20 minutes, which is mind-blowing. But I think VOC 3.0 can get you 75% charge in 30 minutes, so it's about 10 minutes longer to get to 75%. The 10 times zoom model comes with a 4065 mAh battery capacity, so it is a little bit bigger. But remember, that in itself can be misleading. The OnePlus 7 has actually better day-to-day battery life than the OnePlus 7 Pro, even though the Pro is larger due to the 90Hz refresh rate and the larger display, but we may see a similar sort of battery life between the Reno and the Reno 10x zoom. Now, the difference on the 10x zoom model camera comes not only in the secondary lens, which is an 8 megapixel lens compared to the 5 on the standard, but also the periscope 13 megapixel f3.0 aperture lens with a 10x hybrid zoom, 5x optical, 5x digital, chuck them together, and we've got our 10x zoom. We don't have that on this, but again, is that feature really important to you? Would you prefer to get your device for £100 odd cheaper, or would you prefer to pay more and get more features? Again, that would come down to you. All in all, on first impressions, this is a cracking little device which probably will go under the radar, but I think with everything taken into account, the fact that it's cheaper and you still get a great bang for your buck, it's got to be worth a look at if you're in the market for a brand new handset. Remember, I have left the link to where this was sent to me from in the video description below, so you can go through, check it out in more detail, or indeed buy it if you want to. Like and share if you did enjoy this video and found it helpful. Subscribe and hit that notification bell if you're new to the channel and want to be notified every time I post a video on anything tech, pretty much daily content here on YouTube. I love you and leave you. I'll see you in the next one. Says ASBYT. Peace out.